everyone, and welcome to the Postmodern Art Podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and as we welcome in the new year of 2025, I have a fantastic conversation for you guys with an outstanding illustrator, educator that I know would make you all look absolutely stunning if given the opportunity. Today's guest is Abeeha Tariq, an illustrator and educator whose wide variety of projects and children's publications have depicted humans of all shades, places, and cultures absolutely stunningly. Abeeha is someone that every single time I just see her post something, I can't help but just love and admire it. Just the stunning illustrations. So I knew I just had to get Abeeha on here sooner rather than later. And I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to do this because I think there is a very lovely conversation that you guys are going to absolutely enjoy. If you enjoy our guests, please make sure you support them with the links down in the description below. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave 5 stars wherever you can. You know I see that stuff, and you know it genuinely warms my heart. If you want to go a little further with that support, may I recommend you check out the merch shop on fourthwall.com, that link in the description below. We have some fantastic merch as done by some outstanding artists, such as a couple of new pieces that I added over the holiday season, such as the logo redesign that Kitty Katzen had done, or the updated long sleeve tee of the graffiti art that the wonderful Aiden Arts has done. And I think you would look outstanding in it today. And look, if all you want is a nice, cool, casual place to where you can meet other outstanding artists in this community, may I recommend you check out our Discord server, the Artist Sanctuary. We've actually surprisingly recently been getting a lot of new people joining that server, and it's been really cool to really see it light up and get some new energy in there. And I think you would be a fantastic person to be in that community with that same vibe, with that same love and support for all these people in this community today. So if you can, please join that link. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. Thank you so much for doing this, by the way. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Of course. Thank you for thinking of me for this.
Absolutely. Trust me, I've been noticing your your illustrations for a while now. I mean, it was a matter of time. I just needed to buckle down and be like, I gotta remember to ask this person such and such, you know.
Yeah, I think you've done a podcast with one of my friends, so I knew about you from there. So I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to.
Would that friend by chance be Trevor Fraley?
Yes.
I was doing a little bit of research earlier today, getting ready with like questions and stuff like that, and as I was scrolling through, I saw like a meme that you tried to do that had like his icon at one point, and I'm just like, oh, okay, so that's how you probably knew about me.
Yeah.
Trevor was such a cool guest. I still can't believe I got a chance to talk to him about what we did. That was a cool interview. And now I got you on, which is gonna be a cool interview as well.
Hopefully.
I have faith it'll be a good interview. Especially given like all the like just gorgeous illustrations that you've done. Like we've got plenty to talk about. I can guarantee you that.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Trust me, it is the least I can do. No. All right, Abeeha, before I really get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a desert island on your own accord. It is just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe, get truly enjoy yourself for a little bit. With accommodations, you're not stranded on an island. It's like a little personal B&B paradise on a different island than the island you currently are already on. To make sure you don't go completely insane on this island, you can bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with whatever kind of headspace you want on this island. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
So just one piece.
Mm-hmm.
Piece of media. I think I would bring probably just like a little fun, comforting, exciting thing. I think I would probably bring Hotel Transylvania 3.
Ooh, specifically the third one.
Specifically the third one, because I've really gotten into the Hotel Transylvania movies recently, and I just really love the concept of the third one. And because it's based around a vacation, I feel like
proper headspace for that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that.
What was it about like the Hotel Transylvania series that got you like interested in the first place, if I may ask?
I watched them quite late. I watched them quite late, maybe like a few years ago. Watched the first one and then I went on and watched the second and the third. And I just love monsters and I love Halloween and I couldn't believe it had taken me that long to have gotten around to watching these movies because I just love the characters. And then the third one in particular, I love the idea of these characters being on a monster cruise.
Right, right. I mean, the series is. I feel like when it comes to like movie franchise, especially like kids movie franchises, the Hotel Transylvania series is probably one of the more underrated ones. Like people instantly, because like people instantly think, oh my god, Adam Sandler animated movie. No, we're not gonna watch that. But like, there's a lot of genuine thought and fun that go into it, especially when you have a director like Gendy Tartakovsky directing that boat. Huh? See what
Yeah,
I did there? The crusade.
I see it. I see it.
But regardless, Hotel Transylvania 3, that is your answer. You're locking that in.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, if that's the case, I cannot think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. You would look fantastic in the merch that we have at the merch shop. Go to fourthwall.com. Link to that is in the description below. And follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and most social media platforms at Postmod Art Pod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. She is an illustrator and educator whose wide variety of projects and children's publications has depicted humans in all shades, places, and colors. Welcome to the podcast, Abeeha Tariq.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time to be here. How you doing today?
I am doing good. It's a weekend. I've had a day to relax. I haven't touched a single pencil or pen today, but I needed a day. I needed a day
You know,
off.
everyone needs that little bit of day just sit back and relax,
Yeah.
especially with how busy you have been, both in with your real life job being an educator, but also like all the amazing illustrations that you've been able to do over the past few years or whatnot. Like it's been outstanding and stunning to see just all the different ways you've depicted several different things, and I cannot wait to discuss all of that and then some. But before we talk about the stuff you've been doing nowadays, I want to go back just a little bit and learn more or less the origin story of Abeeha. What got you interested in art and illustration and such in the first place?
I have always been interested in art, like ever since I was a kid. Like it's that classic thing. I was always drawing. I loved color, I think has been a big theme in my life. When I was about 10,
Okay.
I dreamed of being a fashion designer.
Ooh.
That was what I wanted to be. I don't know where it came from or what it was, but I had like a big folder full of illustrations of just dresses. They weren't very good, but there was just like I dedicated a lot of time to just drawing dresses. Um, and that actually continued. So from about the age of 10 to maybe 16,
Oh
in my
wow.
head, I was like, I wanted to be a fashion designer. To the point where I even bought books on like making dresses. I don't know how to sew. I can maybe sew a little bit, but I
Okay.
cannot. So I never really like got into that side of it, but really like to draw and design dresses. And my mother is the sewer actually. So for
Okay.
example, when I went to like my Debs, which is kind of like an Irish prom,
Mm-hmm.
um, I designed the dress and had my mother make it for me to wear.
Ooh.
And I've done that for a few significant events in my life where my mother's sort of created what I've drawn. And then I got to sort of secondary school, high school, like towards the end when you're deciding where you're going to go to college, what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 16 deciding, making my decisions then because I'd skipped a year, which I could do at my school. And I kind of talked myself out of pursuing art past that. So I did
Oh, okay.
art in high school, secondary school classes. And then I got to the D-Day. It was like you need to make choices about what you're going to do. And I kind of stepped back. I kind of got into my head about whether I'd be good or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether I had what it took. So I completely went left field and I didn't apply for a single art college or course.
Okay.
And the Irish system is very different, or it was different, and I don't know if it's changed significantly since.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of you applied in a way where you had 10 choices, and they were all put in sort of order of what you would like the most.
Okay.
You didn't send off like an application or write an essay about why you wanted a certain course. You just put down your options on this form, and then depending on your results and the points you got, it went. You got whatever points you most got.
Okay.
So I didn't put down any art colleges or courses. I remember because I had just got into my head, and I ended up applying for like psychology and English and business courses. Mind you, I'd never done a business class a day in my life, but I put down business there. And then I ended up doing English, and then that kind of got away from me. So I always had an interest in art, and then I completely veered off course until maybe like I want to say like 2018, 2019
Okay.
is when I started to get back into it.
Okay. I mean, regardless, like hearing just like more or less the early origins of it, but it's bittersweet in a way because one, I can only imagine like little 10-year-old you just like drawing what you had in your mind was like the most gorgeous dresses or whatnot, like that was gonna look stunning on every little girl in the world or whatnot, and like I will say. It was probably very in line with most fashion designers, as in you were the one designing it, but you had someone else actually make the dress itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you
I
remember
didn't have the talent for that.
Do you remember any of like those early like designs that you personally would like if you could reach back in your mind and like pull that design out, you would love to see it actually transformed into real life today?
Oh, so many. The only ones that are coming to my mind right now are sort of because I really went into I had like a haute couture line,
Okay.
sort of like fancy dresses. Then I had like the everyday ones, and I remember they were very sort of inspired by the time. So I'm thinking of like when High School Musical was out. I'm thinking of like the style that was
Okay.
out around then. A lot of dresses focused on that. What the Disney Channel stars were wearing at the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Like I don't know how to describe it now, but that was sort of thing. But I've always been very interested in sort of the high end, very designer look. So like Alexander McQueen, I went to one of his sort of exhibitions in London
Okay.
with my dad when I was a teenager and was just absolutely in love with that. So I think maybe one of the ones inspired by those sort of creators.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
binder's long gone. The folder's long gone. I got
Oh.
rid of when I moved from Ireland to the UK, we had like a big clear out, and that was one of the things where I was like, "This is."
Ah,
So they're gone.
you should have kept at least like a
I
handful of
know.
them.
I don't think I kept a single one. I think they were all went in the recycling bin.
Ah, dang. What you need to do is you need to find the photos of the few that you actually did get designed or whatnot, and see if you can reverse engineer like how you envision them in your mind or whatnot.
Yes.
But
Well,
it's again that's really sweet to hear that like the beginnings. But I can also imagine, especially as you get getting older, getting to that point where you have to decide for schools again, kind of getting in your head of like what was it about. What in particular were you getting in your head about? Just like, was there the potential for a future in that kind of field? Did you think you just weren't gonna make it or whatnot? Like, what? How did you get in your head at that point?
definitely. I am quite like an idealistic person. I'm also
Hmm.
very realist. And I think I get it maybe from my dad because he's
Okay.
very practical and pragmatic. He's a doctor. Um,
Okay.
so he at the time I just got into my head about one, would I be good enough? Two, was it an industry or a field that would be successful for me? Because I kind of imagined it like you have to be really, really successful to
Right.
be able to sort of be able to work in it. And at this point, and I've spoken about this like on social media before, I had very little understanding of the types of jobs that are available in the art world.
Okay.
So it wasn't until recently, like a few years ago, that I learned about sort of all the behind the scenes that goes into animated movies, from like concept design to prop design and
Right.
all those kinds of things. So I maybe if I had known that there were different kinds of things or particular avenues to go down, I might have thought about it more. But at the time, it was just kind of like, oh, this is art. It's a field that might not lead to anything if you're not amazing, super successful at it. So I
Hmm.
kind of just, I think, scared myself away from it.
I
And
got
because
you.
I was 16, I kind of let myself be, obviously, the adults in my life sort of pulling me this way and that. And then my dad, who, bless him, is again very pragmatic. So he was like, him just kind of like talking me through things, and I'd be like, oh, but I don't know if it's like this, and he'd be like, um, oh yeah, it could not be, but then there's this option and this option, and it was just a confusing time.
Right, right. I mean, it's one of those like you obviously it's not like your parents didn't have bad intentions or anything like that. But again, that
No.
the realistic aspect of it of like unless you really for a lot of people it's like unless you really want it, it's really hard to get in that field. So it's like having the backup plan and all that kind of stuff, especially at 16 years old trying to decide that stuff. It's a lot for an individual to take in one go.
Yeah.
I totally get it. So what? So like you had said, you decided to go instead a different route. You went with English or whatnot. So what brought you back into that realm? Like when did it go from like this previous love that you had or whatnot into kind of rediscovering that love and making it your career or at least a part of your career?
So I think after I moved to the UK, I sort of got about, I didn't have, obviously, I didn't really know anyone here. I'd started a new job,
Hmm.
just a retail job, and I wasn't really even using the college degree that I had gone into.
Right.
So I did art sometimes, but not really. I was very out of practice. And it was really just following people online that kind of led me to sort of gain that love again. And I was kind of going, wow, these people are doing amazing things. And I kind of want to get back into that. So I was following a few people on Instagram and I saw that digital art. So I didn't really know about digital art at that point and kind of got into that. So I remember I bought a Wacom Intuos tablet, the one
Okay.
without a screen, and I had Photoshop on my laptop, and I started having a go at that, but it was really bad.
Hmm.
My early attempts were very bad. And I just didn't understand it, and I didn't like Photoshop. Um, so I kind of like I was still doing traditional because I used to sketch a lot. I used to do a lot of sort of realistic black and white pencil sketches
Okay.
right from when I was a teenager. So that was kind of my so what the art you see from me now is very different to what I was doing when I was in school and beyond.
Right.
And then I was seeing these people doing these amazing, colorful pieces, and I was like, I want to kind of get into this. And then I think it was maybe around 2018, 2019. Um, a girl I used to work with in my retail job, her husband, or her partner at the time, I'm not sure,
Hmm.
he had written a children's book, and she asked me to if I'd like to do the pictures for it. And at the time, it wasn't
Oh.
like, yeah, it wasn't a paid opportunity in any way. It was just like he'd written this book, and I was like, oh yeah, I would actually love to see if I could do a full book of illustrations.
Right.
So it was a, and he wanted to self-publish it. So it was a big learning curve for both of us because I remember the bit where the illustrations were done, the writing was done, and we decided to input it because I knew nothing about bleed or trim and things like that when we uploaded all those images onto the self-publishing thing we had to change so much about because it was the
Right.
wrong size and the wrong fit, so ever since then
Things got kind of warped into each other with like pages being how they are and such.
yeah, it was like I had to go back and alter so many pages and try and fit it around, so it was a big learning curve. Oh, and then before I'd illustrated that book on my iPad actually, because after I had very little luck with the Wacom Intuos tablet, I was seeing people using Procreate and the iPad, and I was like,
Hmm.
I feel like I would work a lot better if I had a screen I could draw directly onto, because that's what
If
I
you could
used
actually
to.
see what you're drawing as you're drawing it, not looking at a
Yeah,
different
like
screen to try
drawing
to guess.
direct, sort of what I'm more used to when I draw.
Hmm.
So I decided to invest in an iPad just so I could use Procreate, and then that kind of I really enjoyed using that. Again, wasn't very good at the beginning, but when I did that book, and then I kept going on and on, and then when lockdown happened in 2020,
Hmm.
I was furloughed from my job, so I didn't have to go in. I wasn't going into work,
Right.
and I decided to set myself a little challenge, which was my Disney alphabet series. So I just had this idea of
Nice.
my head of illustrating this series of images, so like a character per letter. And I did that in March and April of 2020. So I think I almost tried to do it like a illustration a day, but it didn't quite work out that way. And then I just was posting them online. I made a separate Twitter account to post my art to. And then throughout that year, I think 2020, I was just drawing. Like that's all I did. I did a few different like challenges that year that were cropping up. So there was like mermaid. I did like half of a mermaid challenge. I did like I don't know if I did Inktober. I did something around later on in the year as well because I remember moving up to Edinburgh because I was moving up for my teaching course,
Okay.
and I remember my parents were driving me up, and I was sitting in the back trying to complete drawings just so I would have one to post for the next day. And it was such a pain trying to draw in the back of the car because like you'd go up and down and my hand was going everywhere. But
Get that little
I
bit of
did it.
shakiness, go over a bump. Oh, well, there's an extra hair,
I
I
know I
guess.
kept having to redo lines. I was like, this is not working.
If
Um,
only there was a stabilizer for the car. Stop the car. I have to finish this drawing.
Literally, it was insane. But yeah, so then that's how I kind of got into. I think that was the beginning of me properly getting into art again then. So 2020,
I
I
mean,
would say.
even like once again, it's really sweet to hear kind of how you got really back into that art. It was kind of starting off with helping your coworker's partner help out their vision as well by really cropping up the with the children's book or whatnot. Do you remember what that children's book was about?
Yes, I do remember. I still have a copy.
Oh,
Um, it's called The Grumpy Field Mouse.
okay.
Um, and I haven't looked at it in a very long time, but I remember it was a rhyming picture book. It was about this little grumpy little mouse who didn't want to be friends with anyone, and he was just very, very grumpy. And then towards the end, obviously he grew and he came to accept having his little community of other little animals.
Oh,
So, yeah, it was a very fun thing to do. I did learn quite a lot just even from doing that. There
right.
was no time limit on it or anything. It was just kind of I worked on it as and when I could.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I mean, because like you said at the time, it's not like you were being. It was something that you wanted to do to help out with your coworker's partner or whatnot. It's not like okay, we're gonna pay for this, but you have to get it done by this deadline right here. We're getting any updates like throughout that kind of stuff or whatnot. Like this was you more or less like getting your toes wet with like trying to get back into this world in one form or fashion. It's really cool to hear that like that was like one of the dominoes that fell over to kind of lead you to doing some of the incredible, stunning stuff that you're doing these days. I mean, especially hearing that, like, you know, that started and then, you got to do more illustrations. Obviously, the lockdown happened, and that led to you setting yourself up for that challenge of the Disney ABCs, which I definitely wanted to talk about because I saw those as I was doing my research. And by God, like, if if that right there was not even a year after you, or about a year or so after you got back into illustrating or whatnot, that is a good step forward in the right direction because those ABCs were absolutely sensational. What inspires you to want to do that in the first place?
I have always like I'm a big Disney fan. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love the Disney movies. And I just thought it would be a fun way to sort of explore different styles because so a lot of those movies are in different styles.
Right.
And sort of, so I remember what I was doing. I think Disney Plus had just come out at that time as well. And I remember like, my mother had bought me that as like my birthday present that year. So I watched a movie, like, I watched every single movie that I drew for, I think,
Okay.
pretty much. So I'd watch the movie, then I'd draw the
So we
illustration.
got at least 26 different Disney films that you watched in that.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, roughly. Some of them I knew very well, but then some I hadn't watched in a very long time and was
Right.
watching again. So it was nice to sort of get back into that. And yeah, I just thought, what can sustain a full like a month long challenge? And I thought, oh, an alphabet with Disney characters. I was like, I'm surely gonna have plenty to work with if I do that. And that's what it was really.
I mean, that's that again. That is really cool to hear, especially seeing the results that you were able to do with all the different letters and whatnot. I have to ask. Obviously, you have 26 choices. Do you have a personal favorite letter from that group?
There's some where I felt I was more creative, and
Okay.
those are the ones I think I love a bit more. So my C for Cinderella, I
Yes,
I like that one. I like the P for Peter Pan as well.
indeed. Oh yes.
I'm trying to think. And by the way, I had not watched that movie in a while. Peter Pan was one of the ones I'd not watched, and as I was watching it, I was like, questionable choices in this movie. But okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was a product of its time. Let's be honest with ourselves
yeah.
here.
I have that disclaimer on because I remember before I watched it, I saw the disclaimer on Disney Plus, and I went, "Oh, I'm not quite sure what to expect." And then I watched it. I was like, "Oh, okay.
Yep, yep.
I see. I see."
Especially with certain depictions of certain groups of characters. But we'll move on from that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I think my C for Cinderella definitely. I liked my muses. I really enjoyed doing them
Yes.
because
Oh
they
my
were
god.
fun to draw themselves. And then Winnie the Pooh. I really got into that one because Winnie the Pooh is one of my favorites. My step grandmother loved Winnie the Pooh, and she used to buy me the story collections.
Oh.
So Winnie the Pooh has always been a very a staple in my life. So I remember I stayed up all night doing that one because I got so into it. I was like, I want to finish this while I was still in the zone. And
Right.
I think I stayed up like overnight to get that one done. So yeah.
I mean, honestly, if it was, I gotta say, it was mentally probably not worth it, but like seeing the results of it or whatnot, it was absolutely worth it. Seeing kind of the results for just not only like the way the Pooh one, but just all of them. You really did a good, phenomenal job with that, and seeing that
Thank
love for
you.
like Disney really being showcased through, and especially again, like I said, that being one of the first like major things. Because I can only imagine once you really posted those, people saw the Disney aspect of it just alone, and they were like, "Ooh, this looks nice. We like this. This is cool." Like, was that kind of the first little taste of people like recognizing your art and like wanting to see more of it?
Not really, I have to say, because at the
Oh,
time that I did these, I had just made, I think, my separate art Instagram and Twitter. So the
mm-hmm.
people that followed me were people who already knew me.
Mm,
Um, so people from my real life and people who already knew me. So in those early days when I was posting that Disney alphabet, it was mostly just my friends who were like
okay.
retweeting and like commenting on it. And I think it wasn't until maybe like September, October, November of that same year where maybe it was a bit more different eyes on my work at that point.
I imagine it was not just only November. It was specifically the huevember that you did more than anything else,
Yeah.
where you got a lot of people coming in to see kind of all the gorgeous colors, but also like the gorgeous designs that you did for that one. What inspired you to take part of that challenge of huevember?
Oh, I think it was an artist, and I don't think I remember who exactly it was. It was maybe Maggie Schneider.
Okay.
She does, she did, or she used to do a lot of mermaid drawings. And I think I remember I saw one of her series and I actually got her book for it, where she
Okay.
had kind of merged huevember and mermaid and done loads of these drawings. And I did, so when I did my mermaid challenge, I was inspired by her. And then huevember, I was like, oh, I really like working with color, so I want to do another sort of round, but maybe just quicker doodles. Because by that time I had started my teaching course, and I was like, I don't have a whole lot of time to be spending illustrating because I can spend over 2, 3, 4 hours on a single illustration.
Right.
So the ones I did in November were meant to be just sort of quick. Same with the Drawloween. I think I did that year. I think I did one a month for that. So or one every day for that. And that was also just like I was like, right, you cannot spend more than X amount of time on
Can't
these
spend more than
because you
like
have stuff
30 minutes
to do.
because you have your other job that still pays the bills, and you kind of need to
Yeah,
focus on that as well.
yeah, basically. So yeah, it was those challenges, I think, and at the time of 2020, because I think a lot of people were in the same boat, there were a lot of different challenges and hashtags going on at the time. So
Right.
I would just post and try take part where I could or what when I wanted to. There was no rhyme or reason to what I did that year. It was just like if I had time and if I felt like it, I would do it.
I mean, with what you were able to accomplish though in that time, you did some really phenomenal like stuff with that one. I mean, not only like the characters themselves and like the basically their silhouettes you did a phenomenal job with, but I love kind of the intricate designs you did with like especially their clothing and such. Like you really did a good job like emphasizing like the patterns and such with certain things. I think it might go back to that fashion designers days or whatnot of just
Oh
like
yeah,
noticing that kind of stuff.
definitely.
Um it just like what is it about like designs like that more in particular, like just when it comes to like clothing designs or whatnot, like you seem to have, at least in my vision or whatnot, you seem to have a really good emphasis and really good eye for that kind of stuff. What is it about those kind of intricate designs and such that you just love and want to like, zoom in on or harp in on sometimes when it comes to these illustrations?
Yeah, I think fashion is still definitely a big sort of impact in my life. And I come from obviously a Pakistani background, and
Mm-hmm.
our clothing is very, patterns and colors. And I remember like I think I was maybe 10 years old when I went to my uncle's wedding, and that was maybe my first Pakistani wedding I had experienced. And I was just in love with sort of the colors and the outfits. I remember I had like so many different outfit changes as well, and that's one of my favorite parts of going to Pakistani weddings is just seeing what clothes I can wear. um so when one of my cousins got married in 2019, the outfits that I wore for that were actually heavily, I can't remember whether I must have done the art piece after,
Okay.
but the dresses that I wore to that wedding were things that I had designed. So I told my mother, this is what I'm imagining, this is kind of what I want to look like. And I probably like sketched this on the back of an envelope and gave it to her and said, this is kind of what I want. And then we went fabric shopping and looked for different things. So if you've ever seen my sort of like illustration of the four South Asian girls wearing South Asian dress, like
Right.
red, yellow, green, and blue, I think three of those outfits are pretty much what I kind of wore to the wedding, but in different colors. Yeah.
I didn't real. Forgive me, I am not as well versed when it comes to Pakistani culture, just in general and whatnot. But I didn't realize that like wardrobe change was like a thing for something along the lines or something like that. Is that like I that's what I was
We
not aware
have
of.
So usually Pakistani weddings are like a week long, 2 week long process.
Oh
Like they go on for a very
wow.
long time. So there's certain events that are the key ones. I can think of maybe it's been a while since I've been to a wedding, but I think of maybe four key events within that whole wedding week, you could say. So for each of those, it's usually traditional that you obviously wear a different outfit for each
Each
of
day.
those events.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get to go and pick out fancy clothes and jewelry and all that for those events.
Okay. I Again, I am not as well versed. I just thought that like you had wardrobe changes over this period of like 3 hours, like it was an Oscar ceremony or something like that.
No, 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 no.
That's really cool to hear, and I can only imagine. Obviously, like the representation of like the bond and the marriage in different ways all throughout the week or whatnot. So I can understand why you as an artist can creatively take a lot from something like that. Um,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, especially.
Even just
Oh
going to, sorry,
no, you go ahead.
even just going if you've, I was going to say, if you've ever been in Pakistan, but like usually if when you go shopping for clothing, it's usually all tailor-made clothing. So the
Mm,
women or the men will go out and go to fabric shops and they choose the fabric and then they take it to the tailor who makes the outfits usually, and that's how it usually goes. So even just being in those fabric shops and seeing the variety of colors and patterns and textures was always really exciting.
that is really awesome to hear. I now want to go to a Pakistani wedding like event just to see like how
Mm.
something like that could go down. Um,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of coordination goes into this. A
I
lot
mean,
of coordination.
I'd like to be in the background for one. I don't know if I can be up front and center or whatnot, but I mean, anything can happen in life.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, like I can easily see how again events such as that kind of inspire some of the art they kind of more or less led to. I know one of the pieces that a lot of people grabbed onto. I know one of my personal favorite pieces of yours probably has a lot of influence when it comes to the Pakistani clothing or whatnot. And that's the one during huevember where you had like I guess it was like a reddish orange or whatnot, just like
yeah.
the veil or whatnot with like the jewelry and
Bride.
such. Like it, I look at that and I'm like that is just absolutely stunning. I can't get enough of that design alone.
Thank you. That was my profile picture for the longest time because I don't know, it struck. I really liked that one as well, and I don't know. It sort of just showed what I really loved about the glitz and glam of those weddings. So
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell that you certainly have a love for that glitz and glam, not just with the things that you do to like represent yourself and represent like your culture and whatnot, but just the things that you're a fan of as well. I know one of the biggest things that you're a fan of that you've done quite a bit of fan art of is Barbie.
Mhm.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
what was it
yeah.
about?
I was wondering where you were gonna go, but yes.
I mean, I know there's a
Yeah.
million different directions I could take it, but I specifically wanted to talk about some of the Barbie art that you made, especially whenever
Yeah.
like the movie was coming out, around there and whatnot. What is it about Barbie that made you like, that you became a fan of like that and what it represents and such?
I felt very nostalgic about that film. Is
Valid.
when I was little, I used to love to play with Barbies. I don't think I had very many, but I just remember being like 5 years old, and if it was a birthday and someone brought me a Barbie, they would be my favorite person for the next while. Um, so when Barbie came out, I just loved the idea of sort of revisiting that part of my childhood.
Hmm.
And I just like the aesthetics. I like the colors. So when I saw some of the outfits, like because there was a lot of hype for that movie while as
Yes.
it was filming, I think. So a lot of the pictures I used when I did my illustrations were from that era, not even from the actual movie, just the behind the scenes pictures people had managed to get.
Oh yeah. Like I remember
Um,
whenever the movie was first being filmed or whatnot, everyone was going crazy over like the rollerblading like exercise outfit or
yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. So I think the outfits I drew as well were like the ones that come out during that period.
Hmm.
And I just loved the colors. I loved the aesthetic. It made me feel nostalgic. And then when I actually watched the movie and some of the jokes they made in the movie, and I felt, oh, it's like a little hug.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so yeah, definitely sort of those pinks, the blues, the purples. It kind of took me back to that era of like computer games where you would go online and play like Polly Pocket games and
Yes.
Barbie games and all these things. So yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to get across with those, I
I
think.
I remember that era of just online, some people would call it shovelware games or whatnot, but just like the online flash games. That's what I was saying, the
Games,
flash games or
yeah.
whatnot. Kind of like the silly, dress up, such and such from your favorite show or whatnot. All that
Yeah.
ridiculous stuff. Um, I mean, I still think they're still fairly prominent. I mean, it doesn't use Flash; it uses some other software, but I'm pretty sure there's still like a whole lot of them. Though it's a little bit more, clickbaity. Let's take advantage of kids' innocence and such. But
Yeah. No, I remember coming home from school and just loading up the computer and like I used to play like Tetris and things like that, but then when these websites came out and you could go on and do all these fancy um games and things, I loved those games.
do you? Okay, so you're a fan of Disney. So I assume you're a fan of a lot of stuff when it comes to, like you said, High School Musical is like one of the things that you loved growing up and stuff. Please tell me you played on like the Disney Channel website when it had its Flash games or whatnot.
I don't know if I did.
Oh, because I remember.
I kind of watched Disney Channel a bit later in life.
Okay, that's valid. That's understandable. No, I remember because I
Yeah.
remember like going on there and I'd be playing like there's like a Zach and Cody, almost like an elevator, trying to escape, make sure you're not caught by Mr. Mosby like game. There was one that was
Oh
based on
wow.
there was one based on Lilo and Stitch the series, so where you're trying to like stack up a sandwich without having it fall over, have too many disgusting things fall on the sandwich or whatnot. Like there was that the Disney Channel website when it was like for kids more than anything else, having those flash games or whatnot, it was one of the best places to always go to. Um,
I was more of a or not Disney. I was more of a Nickelodeon watcher actually. I think
ah,
for the longest time. So I remember being on the Nickelodeon website and playing all their games.
mm-hmm.
Um, but Disney, I think I started watching, like, we didn't have that channel for quite a while.
Right.
And then I think maybe when I was like 9, 10, maybe we had changed TV providers or whatever it was, and we finally had the Disney Channel. And then I remember High School Musical was like a phenomenon. So
Oh yeah.
everyone in school was watching it, which is, yeah, that's how it became a part of my life.
I'll say I remember my little sister being huge about High School Musical when it was first coming out. So yeah, I remember that era very fondly. I mean, I look back on it and I recognize that like it's fun. It's just a fun movie to watch, whether no matter what you think about it. Um,
I've not watched it a lot since. I think maybe I watched it several years ago, but
okay.
it was definitely like it stayed within that time for me. I don't think I really watched it beyond when it was a phenomenon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I can imagine, obviously, with all the stuff that we've talked about, kind of all the different influences that you've had so far. I can see how a lot of that art and illustration, especially the practice of it, led to you getting more opportunities when it comes to children's publications or whatnot, getting to work more with children's books. Do you remember some of the first opportunities past your friend's book of actually getting the chance to help out and actually bring visions for children's books to life?
It is really weird. So after at the end of 2020, I was contacted by two agents. Um, like I had kind of been thinking of applying for agencies because I'd kind of learned a bit more about the process.
Okay.
But I still, again, self-doubt again. I was holding myself back. I was like, no, I don't think I have work that's good enough for a portfolio. I don't think I'm there yet. So I wasn't gonna apply for a while, but I had agents sort of contact me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my current agent, Alice, who I signed with in January of the next year, uh, I think maybe like a month after I signed with her, maybe 1 or 2 months, was contacted about doing my first book,
Okay.
which was the most exciting Eid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that was maybe March, I think, of 2021 that I was contacted for. And that was my first then project. And then I was grateful I had Alice already on board. So I could navigate that because I had no idea what it meant.
That has to be super surreal to even think about in the first, like, taking a step back, like thinking the fact that you had just recently gotten back into just art and illustration as a whole in like 2018, 2019, and here you are like 2 3 years later and you already have a book that is published with your art in it. That has to be a surreal thought in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. It was very bizarre, very exciting, but very bizarre because I kind of felt like I was just falling into things. I was
Right.
like, I know I was drawing and I knew I had like a vision of where I wanted this to go for me, but I wasn't actively pursuing it beyond just drawing and posting online. I wasn't like sort of reaching out to people or emailing people or making people aware that I was here. I was just posting it to my own social media. And then what I love about social media is that you can form sort of natural, organic friendships through it. And I think in 2020 and 2021, I was doing a lot of that. I was
Mm-hmm.
meeting new people, discovering new work, and it was just fun to be a part of that community. And then that led to me then maybe like editors following me or people who work behind the scenes in publishing, because the way I think my agent found me was actually someone had seen my work and sent it on to her and said, oh, you should
Okay.
see this girl's work. And I think that was like a portfolio day post I'd done. So that was really helpful actually. Portfolio day was a good thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, I with the amount of especially with the amount of people out there putting out phenomenal work on Portfolio Day, you'd be surprised
Yeah,
the opportunities that Portfolio Day actually leads to. I mean,
definitely.
hearing that you got your agent through Portfolio, someone recognizing yourself on Portfolio Day, and here you are again years later getting these cool opportunities to work on such incredible books, such as the most exciting Eid, Becca and the Moon, all sorts of like lovely, incredible, and just outstanding like artwork for these incredible kids books as well. I'm curious for you because I don't think I've ever had a chance to ask anyone this kind of question. What is the process like for you when it comes to like providing illustration for a kid's book? Like, is it one of those like, how much are you like cooperating with the author? How much of it is just like you being given something and working? Like, was it for you from like getting a project and finishing up so it can be presented to the world?
There's quite a lot of steps. Very rarely do I actually speak to the authors,
Okay.
funnily. So it's usually the publishers that get in touch with me. Um, I have very little direct contact with authors. Like some of the authors that I've worked with have found me through social media and recommended me to their publishers and gone,
Okay.
oh, I know this girl. I'd really like for you to inquire about her. And then in that way, I've had discussions with some authors. But usually, once it gets to the actual process of starting the book, I don't really speak to the authors um, in that process. It usually, obviously, once the contract is sorted and all this is done, usually I may do like a character sample for them and the contract's finalized, and then it goes through stages of sort of your first drafts. Then you get them back to do revisions on them,
Mm-hmm.
and you send them back. Then it's okay to go to color, and then sometimes you get asked for color roughs. Sometimes you're just sort of let go and you color how you want, and then come back to us. And then once you've done the coloring, it goes through another sort of revision process, and then things get changed about again. And then sort of the final bits, and then it's sort of finalized there. And then if
Okay.
you're doing the cover or any additional things for the company, you do that sort of at the end.
That's something I've always been like amazed and intrigued by when it comes to kind of the publishing world, because I think I had like the very similar like mentality or reaction when we were talking to Trevor Fraley on the podcast, and hearing him talking about like the process for him going from like the author like wrote for, like, for example, the Scar series, to like actually providing the illustrations and going forward. The fact that there wasn't really much contact with the writers in the first place, it was really more of a publisher aspect. I mean, obviously, it's worked this long, so if, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've just always thought that, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine it's probably different with every client, it's different from every author that you probably worked with or whatnot, but like, I imagine the authors, like, they probably have a somewhat of a vision of how they want to go about it, hence why they hired you in the first place. I didn't realize how much or how little they were when it comes to like the actual like creative process of like, this is how I envisioned it, this is how it should go, da 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 da.
I'm not sure now. Behind the scenes, I'm not sure because I know that usually when I send my submissions through, I think they get shown to the author
Okay.
and the author has shown them. And then I think the author has a say in whether they'd like certain things changed or added in or removed or whatever else. Same with when it goes to color. But then I'm not sure because I'm not part of the process. Because when I get a picture book brief, they usually have notes for me already, like, oh,
Okay.
we would kind of like to see, so and so at the table having dinner, things like that. So they've clearly discussed what they would like to see on every page. And sometimes they're very specific, and sometimes it's a bit more free and open to your interpretation.
Yeah, they have more or less like a rough idea that probably the author had a good bit of input onto. It's just your responsibility to try to see if you can bring that to life, or at least illustrate it to the best of what they envision in their mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and then I remember my very first picture book I did, I was very solidly like, I was like, this is what they want, this, so I'm just going to do it exactly how they want. And then I think now 3 years, yeah, 3 years later, I'm a bit more like, so for example, if I get feedback back, I think I'm a bit more confident to push my thinking. So if they're like, oh, actually, could you try do it this way? I'm like, oh, but I think it might work better if we do it this way. I'm kind of gaining that confidence,
Right.
but it's still like, obviously, because you're working for someone else and it's someone else's book, you want to do it justice in the
Mm-hmm.
way they imagined it. So
I mean, I can imagine that, but I mean, I can also imagine when it comes to obviously the authors, it's not like they're gonna be disappointed in what you presented. I mean, you wouldn't be getting the opportunities. I mean, seeing some of the cool, like, the books I've already illustrated. Well, I haven't illustrated. You're the one that illustrated them. But the books I had mentioned beforehand or whatnot, seeing kind of the outstanding and stunning art that you've been able to provide for some of them. Like, do you have a personal favorite like book just based on like the illustrations you were able to provide for it?
whew, I sort of two come to mind. So Becca and the Moon, I absolutely loved
Yes.
because I felt like I got to be quite creative with it, and it was because it was so dreamlike. I got to bring sort of that element to the illustrations, which was really fun. Um, so yeah, I think I really enjoyed Becca and the Moon, and then my Magic Faces series
Okay.
was fun to do just because of the actual story behind the illustration. So it was just such a fun um, set of stories. So, like, imagining these children in these different worlds. So, I think the first one was the pirate ship, the second one was superheroes, and the third is the monster party. And it was
Ooh.
just fun to sort of you're still with your same characters, but you're getting to put them in different worlds and different situations, and that was fun.
Right. I mean, I can only imagine, especially with kind of the creativity that can be brought forth just by putting them in these different scenarios, like the different
Yeah.
silly monsters that you could, provide that have kids like that spooky but silly time at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to go full on with the horror aspect of it. So these are marketed to kids.
Yeah. Definitely. And even when I think of like Halloween, I think of like those kinds of like sweets and fun and dressing up.
Yeah.
I don't always go into sort of the really dark vibes.
Yeah. That's
Um,
for the young adults novels.
yeah,
You'll eventually get there someday.
maybe.
um There was one book in particular that I wanted to mention real quickly. It's actually the most recent one that has been published to my knowledge or whatnot, and that is Papa's Butter Chicken. Like I
Yes.
I love how, like, of all the books that I think I've seen you be able to publish so far, at least on face value, that's oddly enough the one that I could probably connect to the most. Um, Partially because of, like, one, the cooking aspect, because as you can tell, I'm a very hefty guy. Food is a big love language for me.
Yeah.
Um, but also, oddly enough, I've actually worked at an Indian restaurant before. Um, it's one of those. It was so my mom had lived in Florida at the time, and I would go there for like summers or whatnot. And at a mall food court, there was a Indian restaurant or whatnot that was there. Like, that was run, like, the guy was from India. He had made his money off of I want to say it was like cybersecurity or something along the lines of, after he had moved to America and decided to open up like this Indian restaurant. All the recipes were like his or whatnot. So, like, seeing like the process in there of how they were able to make that stuff, and me just thinking fondly of all those wonderful flavors that you get or whatnot. Like, I looked at those pages. I'm like, I am hungry for Indian food now. Thank you, congratulations.
Good, good.
I mean, especially with how you were able to illustrate it as well. Like, I'm looking at those pages, I'm looking at the beautiful dishes or whatnot. I'm like, oh, where's the nearest Indian place? Because oddly enough, it wasn't until I worked at the Indian place that I had never had Indian food leading up to it. Because where I'm from, like, Indian food is not like a major commodity. It's not something that
Yeah.
it's not up there with, like, the McDonald's or the Taco Bells or whatnot. Like, if you
Yeah.
really want Indian food, you have to go out and look for it. And my
Yeah.
family never even, I'm not gonna say they didn't care much about it, but it's like it's not one of the things that they really thought much of. So, like, I never had
Yeah.
it until I started working there. But the warm flavors, and like the delicious tikkas, chicken korma, chicken tikka
Yeah.
masala. Like, I'm sorry, I'm making myself hungry right now. But it's that book, as well as a lot of the other ones that we mentioned beforehand. It does lead me to something I did want to bring up. I noticed that with these books, as well as something that you mentioned in your about on your website, which I will have linked in the description below. Very fantastic website, wonderful illustrations and such. And something I also mentioned in the intro, you seem to have a very big emphasis when it comes to showing more or less the diversity of humans when it comes to this kind of stuff. How important is it for you to really showcase that when you can get the opportunity to do so?
Hugely. I think that's always been, ever since I was a kid, really. I used to draw sort of characters of all different types and colors and sizes and things. And then when it was more of a conscious decision, so as a kid I was maybe just, illustrating what I saw, what I knew. Um and then as I got older and was drawing, it became very important to sort of be more inclusive in that way. I was more of a conscious decision then, but still part of like sort of what I do anyways. I
Right.
think 'cause when I sit down to draw, usually what I'm imagining is, all sorts of different things. Um, so that is a huge thing. And then I think also being Pakistani myself, like I loved, not even visually, but even when I used to read novels or stories from the library when I was a kid, and I would see sort of a Pakistani name or a different name.
Right.
Um, I loved sort of that sort of element of just being part of the story, even if it was a minor character or something. It was always nice to sort of see. So then when I illustrate, a big thing is making sure sort of more people are seen, because a lot of my characters are sort of maybe South Asian based, but I've been very lucky to do obviously other stories with sort of black characters as well.
Right.
Um, and yeah, in all my stories, especially because a lot of them are sort of end up being based in sort of big family scenes or community scenes, I always want to have sort of that in my stories.
I mean, like I can absolutely see that just based on what you were talking about, not just with the Pakistani aspect, but also like I imagine as well, like the Irish aspect of your family as well, kind of that big family feel, but like providing
Yeah.
that the different diversity of characters, especially in a space like this where sometimes it's not something that a lot of people really think about, but something that it'd be good to really expose all these different cultures, these different ideals to people, to really show just how connected and how unique of a world we actually do live in. I mean, I that's something that I love and I applaud you for getting when you get the opportunity to work on this kind of stuff. How much you're able to showcase this stuff and really let people see kind of the beauty of it.
And I think it's definitely a work in progress. Like there's more
Oh
that
yeah,
you can be doing, more that you can be including. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that part of sort of like who's gonna be within these stories.
yeah. I mean,
And
I,
just my
I mean, like I
sorry.
said, no, you're perfectly fine. I was gonna say, no, trust me, honestly, like with what you've been able to provide so far, whether it is like working on these incredible children's books or the illustrations that you do on your own, just every little bit that I get to see of all the different cultures that you take in and reciprocate onto the world or whatnot, I cannot help but get enough of it. Like the huevember or whatnot, all the different designs, see the different cultures that you illustrate through there. I loved all those. I mean, even if it's something as simple as like the Disney culture and how you're able to project those characters or whatnot. Like I cannot tell you how much I really love and appreciate not only the time that you put to really reciprocate that culture, but like the way you more or less develop that like art style or whatnot. Like that's something I also wanted to ask probably a little sooner. But like your art style is absolutely stunning. Like how did you more or less develop it? Like what were some of the artists that influenced you to really develop this kind of unique style that you've developed for yourself?
Hmm. Um, I think it's definitely been a process of. I think I learned quite a lot in a short amount of time
Oh
because,
yeah.
as I was saying before, when I was in, and this is really funny based off the last sort of question we just had,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was drawing in secondary school and I used to go to my art classes, I was doing a lot of black and white pencil sketches, and they were usually all of just white people because I was drawing celebrities that I knew. And at the time, most of what I was exposed to was sort of Disney channels or
Right.
whatever shows I used to watch. It was mainly white people on those shows. So a lot of the sketches from my early days that I did was that. But then when I got into sort of the color side of it, so when I did, on the off chance, I did do some color studies or, a painting of something else, I would always include like that element of something different. Um, and then, oh, I've forgotten the question now.
Well,
I did.
no, you're
Well,
good. Yeah, that's I can
oh, my
tell you.
influences, my
Yes.
influences.
Yeah.
So then when I started to get more into the color side of it and exploring that, I think definitely. So I did not know who Mary Blair was until someone said it to me. They were like, "Oh, your work really reminds me of Mary Blair's work," and I went, "Thank you. I'm gonna go Google who that is because I don't know." But okay. And I I looked her up and I went, "Oh, this is a huge compliment." I was like, and then I realized because I loved obviously Cinderella, I loved Alice in
Okay.
Wonderland, I loved Peter Pan. I didn't know who was behind those visuals and the art in those movies, but I loved those movies. So once I learned a bit more about the behind the scenes of those movies, I realized things like Mary Blair, Walt Peregoy, Avon Earl. I don't know if I'm saying these names right, but sort of those mid-century Disney artists. Like I love those sort of colors and the dreamlike quality to their work. And then when I was sort of from people I used to follow when I was getting into art in 2019, 2020, it would be people like Lorelei Bove, Brittany Lee, who are heavily inspired by Mary Blair. So the Mary Blair connection has clearly persisted.
The Mary Blair
But
lineage is definitely on full display.
once I found out about Mary Blair, I was like, oh, I can see her influence in their work because I had known about them before I'd known about who she
Right,
was.
right.
So definitely that. Anusha Syed, who is a Pakistani Canadian illustrator, I followed her um, and loved her work. She is a picture book illustrator, but it was the first time I think I'd really seen a Pakistani person doing an being an artist.
Okay.
And I think that might have, she's definitely one of the people I think of when I think of like how I kind of envisioned illustration being a reality in my life, like in a
Mm.
professional capacity. She was definitely one of those people I think that was up there.
I mean, I can absolutely understand that. I mean, it's always encouraging to see someone that you can see having a similar background, similar upbringing, kind of, really having that representation in your life and really showing you what could possibly be out there, what the opportunities could
Yeah.
be, and seeing the opportunities that you've been able to have so far. Like it's absolutely outstanding. Like I said, in a relative short amount of time, you've been doing this for like what, 5, maybe 6 years at this point, like really getting back to the illustration aspect of it, and here you are getting incredible opportunities and really showcasing some outstanding art in one form or fashion. It leads me to wonder, like, in this short little time that you've been able to do right here, do you have a personal favorite? Like whether it's your illustrations, your art for your books, for the books that you've been able to have a hand in and such. Like, do you have a personal favorite piece or a personal favorite like collection of art that you've been able to present to the world?
Oh, um, I love the stories that I have worked on, the picture books, but I think with them sometimes there's a limitation in that the ones I've done so far have been other people's stories and
Right.
other bringing other people's visions to life. So most of my actual favorite pieces are kind of my personal pieces and ones I can kind of think of. One I did at the beginning of this year was the Barbie dream house. That
Yes.
was that was a really fun one to do. And similarly, my Halloween house, which I think I did in 2020, but I reuse and repost every year. Um, I really love that because I think they kind of showcase who I kind of am, like in
Yeah.
terms of general vibe.
Kind of
Because I think
the dichotomy of what you could present. You could present this nice cheeky cheery one, or you could provide this silly spooky skeleton stuff right here.
yeah, and that kind of I think between those two they kind of show who I am and what I like to draw. Because and it's weird because usually my art is very character focused and they're not so much,
Right.
but I think in a weird way the character kind of jumps out even though there's no actual focus on characters in those pieces. Um, but yeah, those two were really fun to do.
Well, there you go. There you go. I'm glad to hear that. And if it's cool with you, you better believe I'm gonna flash those up so that people can see it for the video version of the podcast because they are absolutely stunning works. Because I remember you said that, and especially the Barbie dream house with like the intricate like ways you were able to illustrate the rooms with all the different colors, just kind of on there. Like it was well done, if I do say so
And
myself.
that was my first personal piece in maybe a year
Oh
because
wow.
the year previously I had had no time for personal art. It was just my between my day job and then client work, I had no time for anything else really.
I gotcha. I mean,
I think so.
if nothing else, if whether or not that's true, it was well worth the wait in order to get to that point. It also leads me to wonder as well because obviously having the love for the stuff of like Disney, having the love for Barbie and such, it leads me to wonder because like I imagine as a children's book illustrator yourself, there's got to be at least like one type of story or maybe one IP that if they decide to make a children's book, I imagine you'd love to get the opportunity to jump on and be the official illustrator for said book. Is there a certain kind of IP that you would love to just like tinker with the world just a little bit and be like, here's my official vision for what you guys want to present?
Oh, that's a very big question.
It is.
I dream of like one of my dream projects would be just a book of fairy tales that I get to illustrate.
Ooh,
Because again, big fan of fairy tales. So I think just a collection of those where I could sort of imbue them with my style and my vision would be pretty fun to do.
absolutely. That would be really cool. In fact, let's keep on the little dream path, if I may, a little bit.
Yep.
And I want to give you, Abeeha, more or less the dream scenario, if I may. Let's say I
Okay.
am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come up to you and I'm like, look, Abeeha, we have seen the absolutely stunning and outstanding illustrations you've been able to do so far. We know there's a lot more you can do. You see that little extra, push, a little extra platform to get you to that point.
Yeah.
We have access to everyone and anyone in whatever industry possible, and more money there should be possible. You really should be compensating the people, especially in the animation field, that you're currently
Oh,
are trying to make sure they get
absolutely.
paid or whatnot. You know, make sure to get healthcare and all the benefits that they need to get. Hashtag stand with animation. But we'll focus on them in a little bit. We promise. We promise we're going to focus on them in a little bit. Right now, we are focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream Abeeha Tariq project?
I have to say, because I've been thinking about this for a while,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to do. Um, I think I've said this on social media. If they were to do an animated Barbie movie,
Ooh.
if they were to do one, and I am imagining it within my Barbie dream house style, and also in sort of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder style, if you've seen that,
I've
like
seen that.
yeah, I would just love to merge sort of Barbie with that and do a movie in that kind of style.
Okay. Okay. No,
And I'm
absolutely.
not an animator, but I feel like I could do the viz dev for it
Oh
if they
no,
gave me.
you absolutely too. Seeing the viz dev you've technically done with all sorts of with all the fan art, that's technically viz dev on its own. I mean,
Yeah.
just providing that to the upfront and letting the animators know like this is what we're going for or whatnot. Like especially just based on the Dreamhouse design alone. Like you said that, and I'm like done, sold. Here's all the money, make it happen. Um, Ah, that would be really cool to see. I mean, it also
Would
leads
be
me
a
to
dream.
it also leads me to ask: do you have like an ideal cast set in mind if you were to do that kind of thing, or would you just bring on Margot Robbie again to voice Barbie or whatnot? Or
No, I feel like we could maybe go in a different
okay,
direction because I quite like the idea of giving maybe slightly lesser well-known actors and voice actors a chance.
I I I
Um,
love your
with the
mentality.
things. 'Cause I feel like Margot has had her time in the spotlight with Barbie.
There you
So
go.
I feel like we could move it on to I don't know who it would be behind it, but I would just love to be part of the art process.
I mean, I would just love to be in the room whenever you guys are deciding this kind of stuff, just to see how you bring that vision to life. That's gotta be insane just to get that on its own. But sadly, we gotta get down from the dream scenario. We gotta get back to reality, and I'll ask the ever so generic question: where do you hope to see yourself in, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
Ooh. I what it's such a weird thing to have, but I would love to actually I see myself in a proper studio.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
it can be in my house, but I currently live in a place where I can't really hang up art. It's rent it's rented.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have my own studio where I can hang up all the art I've been hoarding. It's currently in boxes and in frames that haven't been put up, but I would love to have a scenario like that. And then I would like to, in 5, 10 years, I would like to hope I've at least written one picture book that I've
Okay,
also illustrated myself. I'm currently in the process of, I have an idea for a story.
okay.
Um, I've written the first draft, which needs to be changed up and all of that, but I would like to keep going down that vein and really develop that. And I think with the character that I've thought of, it could maybe turn into a little fun series as well.
Oh, that'd be
But
cool.
I would love to do that. And then um VizDev for animation.
Okay.
I would love to if it was like if the industry somehow stopped being the way it is currently,
Yep.
and allowed for genuine creativity and the time and the space to develop new original ideas, I would love to be a part of VizDev teams for that.
I mean, first off, to your first point, as someone that loves the artwork and displays the stuff that they more or less love, having your own thing to put up and just be able to admire and love or whatnot, like I can see why that's a good vision to have. It's a good dream to have, more or less. But I mean, like especially the other stuff, like I easily think that if given the opportunity, like you could easily not only get those opportunities but just knock them out of the park. I can easily see
Thank
that.
you.
um I mean, it's insane to think that in 5 to 10 years, like that's where you want to be. Considering the fact that if you look back again, like a little more than 5 years ago, you weren't even thinking about doing this kind of stuff, or maybe you were thinking of it, but like passing fleeting idea, like oh, it'd be fun to do this kind of thing or whatnot. And here you are now, more or less like in the thick of it, like you know providing some incredible stuff in one form or fashion. Thinking to your art journey as a whole, like even thinking back further to like that first love you had with the fashion design, to more or less psyching yourself out of it, and here you are right now. Are you more or less impressed with the journey you've been able to come along as an artist?
I think so. I still, one of my regrets in life is that I didn't pursue art in college.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had a time machine, I think that is one thing I would go back and change, because as amazing as it is to now be in that space, I sometimes feel like a bit of an imposter, and like I'm still playing catch up with, other people. And I try not to focus on those things because it's not really helpful to the creative process. But sometimes you can't, those intrusive thoughts do come in. Um, so, but I do think that things work out the way they do for a reason. And I think that what I'm doing now is very much aligned with who I am
Mm-hmm.
and the kinds of things I want to draw and want to put out into the world. Especially like, obviously, being an educator as well as an illustrator. I feel like my two worlds like mesh really well together.
Right.
They fit quite well.
I mean,
So yeah, I'm happy. It's sometimes when I'm having down days and I'm thinking, oh, I've not done enough, or I pick up a pencil and I can't seem to draw a simple head and I'm losing patience with myself. I do try to remind myself, I'm like, I'm still very, I guess, early on in that journey. Even if I think about, really, it was kind of 2020, I would say, that sort of launched everything. So I'm kind of like, you're still very early into
oh
your
yeah.
journey. So be a bit more patient with
Yeah.
yourself.
No, absolutely. I mean, trust me. I've talked with people that, you know, they've had art journeys ranging all the way back to like the 70s and 80s or whatnot. I've had people that started their art journey just a few years ago or whatnot. Like every single time I've had to talk to these people, they've always had some form of imposter syndrome in one form or fashion for the most part. It's a common thing. So I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, but also, like you said, you're still like when it comes to like going all in when it comes to this art, your art journey is really just beginning, and seeing the opportunities you've been able to have just at the start, that's nothing to that's nothing to discredit or anything like that. It's impressive at the end of the day. So yeah, I can see where the mentality comes from, but also like if it helps, I at least want to let you know you got this. You're doing fantastic right now.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
as we start to wind down the interview, I just have one last question I want to ask you, Abeeha. Obviously, you're deeply interested in art in one form or fashion at this point. Like, there's no getting you away from that anytime soon. Um,
Yeah,
how important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
I've been thinking about this a lot recently with sort of the way the world is at the moment
Yeah.
and AI art and these
Oh yeah.
big companies sort of making these decisions, putting money at the forefront of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think art is really a reflection of the human experience. And I think throughout history, way, way, way back when, people used to make sense of life and emotions and what's happening to us through art, whether it was, caveman drawings or what we do now in picture books and animation. So I think art is really essential to our lives, like in so many different ways. So it's sad to see the way it's being treated at the moment and the way creatives are being treated across the world. And I think that happens when you mix, obviously, art, which I feel like is a very human endeavor, with sort of money and,
Yep.
you know, products and things. And that is something I think about a lot, obviously, as someone who does it as a profession.
Yeah.
So I do it to make money. Um, but I still think at the heart of even things I'm doing, like we have stories that we're representing. So whether it's Papa's Butter Chicken or The Most Exciting Eid or Beck and the Moon, you're exploring people and stories, and they all come from, whether it's the author or the illustrator, that's a very personal thing that they are putting into those things. So I don't think this world would be a place to be without art. And
I
I don't think like, yeah, I don't think it would be worth living in
There you
without
go.
art.
There you go. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that is wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. Trust me.
thank you.
Trust me. This podcast is probably one of the first, not one of the first, but it's definitely one of the most solid places where you're gonna hear me say no AI in art whatsoever. Please, like
Yeah,
like uh, AI can be helpful in other instances. Like I see it being used in like the medical field or whatnot, and it can be very helpful in situations like that. But when it comes to art, art is a very human thing. Let the humans have fun. Let the humans show the human aspect of it. But
yeah,
I feel like again at this point, considering all the people that I have on this podcast and my audience for the podcast as well, I'm preaching to the choir at this point. Um,
yeah, oh, yeah.
But that is all the questions I have for you, Abeeha. I've already showered you with Lord knows how much praise up to this point, but I will show you a little bit more because it's my podcast. I do what I want. Um, like I said, whenever I was first even aware of your art, I was instantly just like blown away from like the look of it and the design of it, and like the seeming love and care that went to just about every single little piece, whether it be again the Disney ABCs or the Barbie dressed up as a cowgirl or something along the lines of that. Like I could definitely see the time and dedication you put in that stuff, no matter how far or how few it may seem for each one. Um, but especially now that I can get the chance to really talk to you, know that that love is something that you kind of more or less always had, and seeing the love that you've had, and the love lost, and the love refound or whatnot, to where you are right now, getting the opportunity to really bring forth incredible visions and really have a fantastic time putting forth just stunning piece after stunning piece. Like it makes me love and appreciate all that you've been able to do for the art field so far, even in this relatively short amount of time. Like no matter what you think, no matter what you say, you have done a lot in a short amount of time, and it is impressive. And if this is what you've been able to do in this amount of time, Lord knows what you're going to be able to accomplish in the next 5, 10, 20, 50, however many years you get, because you had the opportunity to do so many incredible things, and I cannot wait to see what you're able to do. The long and the short of it, Abeeha, is thank you so much for what you do. Please keep up the incredible work. Please keep showing that love, not just for art but for the culture and such, and showcasing every little bit that you can, because I for me it's absolutely stunning and amazing. For someone else it could be awe-inspiring, and I cannot wait to see what your art could potentially do to really bring more of a human experience together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me and for the lovely praise. But yeah, thank you very much.
I'm just being honest at the end of the day. So now if people want to know why I have been gushing about your art and your illustrations and the kids books you've had a hand in and all stuff like that, if they want to know why I've been gushing about you for at least the past hour or so, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home.
Oh, so I am. I think if you want to follow me on any platforms, most platforms, I'm Abeeha Tariq Art. Um, if you want lovely, colorful, vibrant illustrations, I would like to think I'm your girl for those. Um, but yeah, you can usually find me on social media because usually I am yapping away and avoiding doing what I should be doing. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much me.
There you go. Also, I'm gonna ask this now because I heard the pronunciation. Have I been mispronouncing your last name wrong the entire time?
Maybe.
You could have told me sooner.
I don't know. I say Tarek.
Okay, you say Tariq. See, I was saying Tariq because I'm used to hearing people call it Tariq. Okay.
Lots of people say Tariq, so I don't actually. Maybe it just doesn't register with me.
Okay.
It did not register with me.
Either way, apologies at this point of the podcast. Abeeha Tariq. I'm
You're,
so sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine. I'll accept both.
Well,
I think it has many pronunciations, so
there you
Tarek
go.
or Tariq it's fine.
Well, I appreciate your kindness at the end of the day as well. It also I do also want to ask this one last question. I can't believe I forgot to ask this a little bit sooner, but obviously because like I said in the intro, you're an illustrator and an educator. How many of your
Yes.
kids know about the illustrating aspect of it, or how many have you had any of your kids being like, "Hey, I read your book" or whatnot?
Yeah, most of them.
Oh wow.
Most of the children I work with, because um, when I first illustrated my first book, I actually brought it into school.
Okay.
Or yeah, like I can't remember whether I brought it in or, but I think I must have brought it in, and then it was shared around. So most of the kids know that I illustrate as well. And I also do on Fridays, I run an art club in the school.
Okay.
So yeah, the ones who go to that club definitely know what I do as my second job.
There you go. There you go. I mean, can you imagine if one day, again, like let's say like 20, 30 years in the future, you have one of those kids coming back and be like, I remember your illustrations growing up and inspired me to be an illustrator. Like, I would cry for you if that was the case, okay?
Yeah, I had and I think speaking to like the power of sort of how art can show representation, I did an illustration of Red Riding Hood,
Mm-hmm.
but Red Riding Hood was sort of black, she had curly hair in that illustration. And when I was still teaching, we did a fairy tale challenge of like a book, and I put up some random images of the Red Riding Hood tale on the screen just for like a bit of inspiration, getting the kids to do it. And I put up my own one as well
Mm-hmm.
as part of that little mood board. And it was so lovely to see so many of the kids choosing to then draw sort of a brown skinned Red
Oh.
Riding Hood from that. So I think it's, yeah, art is just very important.
If that doesn't speak to the power of what anyone can potentially do with their art, I don't know what will. Um, do you have any final words before we sign off?
Putting me on the spot. Not really. It was just lovely to be here and chat to you. Sometimes you don't get to stop and think about what you do or how you've gotten to this point. So it was nice to sort of sit down and just talk through it with you.
Well, I'm glad to give you that opportunity because believe me when I say having you on this podcast, you more than deserve it. All right. Um,
Thank you very much.
with that, all I've got to say is for the people at home, if you can, please pay your artists.
Please.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me sparks in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can all open. Show me it all, put me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening, I greatly do appreciate it. Um, this was a fun chat that I knew I was going to have the inside ask that Abeeha to be on. And Abeeha, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was like I said in the intro, it was a lovely chat, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to chat with you. Um, I was hoping to have this be a big, giant, rousing speech when it comes to how 2025 is going to be an amazing year and stuff, but I think I did enough of that last week. I wanted to take the time to talk about something that happened unfortunately at the last day of the year of 2024, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now. This is gonna be a major content warning, major trigger warning. If suicide is a very uh, personal and harmful topic for you, I'm just gonna let you know right now. Just click off the video. Just the video's over at this point for you, and I sincerely hope nothing for the best for you. I completely understand, but I'm about to talk about something that's still stings. If I could be honest with you. Um, so as I don't know the exact date, but as of December 31st, I learned that a person that I personally wasn't super close with, but was close to a lot of the members that are in my friend group and in my community, an artist by name of Foxifyer. He posted a video, a 6.5 hour long video, just basically going through all the pain and harm that he has just kind of felt over the years, and he took his own life, and it sucks. I was never on the best of terms with Fox. I'll be blunt, but every single time I popped in the server and he was there, he was always a fun person to be around, you know? He was always a good, for the most part, like, he was a good Fox. And it sucks, especially going through some of that video and listening in at certain points, just knowing kind of the pain and the hardship he was mentally going through. He was going through a lot. And part of me, like, feels bad that I didn't get a chance to know about that, because I would have fucking fought hard for him. I mean, I'll be blunt. I never saw eye to eye with the guy. He and I had some very different ideals, especially when it came to political stuff. And I don't like to talk politics and shit like that, but there are some times where he would just talk about certain things I'd want to punch the living shit out of him. But that doesn't mean that he was a bad person. He had a, you know, this death is still fresh on me. It's still hurting a lot, especially for a lot of my close friends. And I wanted to take the time to at least, you know, acknowledge him and to honor him as best as I can. I don't know if I could do it justice. I don't know if anyone could do it justice. He was a good artist on his own form. He was a great person to really brighten up the mood anytime he was in a call. And I know he meant a lot to a lot of people. I'll leave a link to, you know, his Blue Sky or Twitter or something like that, and maybe his YouTube, so you guys can take the chance to go through, see what he has, and really honor his legacy more than anything else, because he didn't deserve what happened. And I want to also take this time to just let you guys know that if you guys are personally struggling with whatever mental thing, if you are feeling the way that Fox had felt, if not worse, please reach out. There are people that do care about you, whether you realize it or not. Whether it be the professional hotline number, which I can't remember off the top of my head, whether it be that, or whether it be to your close friends and family. Like, reach out and talk to someone. You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to suffer at all. It's not easy. It's never going to be easy. Life is never going to be easy, but you don't have to suffer it alone. And this message especially goes out to any of my close friends, or even people that I have only become like acquaintances. Like, if we've only talked like once, or I've chatted with you here and there or whatnot, if you're struggling with something and you need someone to talk to, message me. Like, DM me, you know? I want to make sure that you guys are okay. Because you all mean a lot. Just like I know Fox meant a lot to people. I'm gonna miss him. Despite everything, I'm going to miss him. And I know how much this is gonna hurt, not just for me, but for everyone that was even closer to him. And I only hope that I can help them honor him, and I can help them get through the hardship immediately and just be there for them. That's all I can do for them and for you guys. So if you need someone, like, please don't hesitate. I might not be able to get to you immediately. You know, I also got my own stuff, but that doesn't give you an excuse to not. I care about each and every single one of you guys, and I love you all. Even though last year ended on a sour note, I'm hoping that this upcoming year and for all the years to come. I sincerely hope that we can become closer, and we can end people thinking like this. We can get people to know that that people care about them, that people love them, because we do. We really do. Thank you guys for your time. Go hug someone today. Go hug someone that you love. Tell your parents or your partners or whoever, tell them that you love them. Tell them that you care. Please.